The Weaver's Needle is a vessel that gives you a significant advantage over the Hundred-Eyed Daoist. To obtain it, you need to enter Purple Cloud Mountain and defeat the final boss of the area. This is of course done in classic Wukong style, which is to say that to enter Purple Cloud Mountain, you need to first find and beat up the Venom Daoist, not once, but twice. It's okay, I'm sure he deserved it. So first up, head to the Upper Hollow Shrine, and then head left up the stairs, proceeding through the entire zone, kind of head towards the middle, and jump down at the lit area. From here, proceed through the area until you find some hanging spider sacks. Some of them are going to try to attack you. That's fine, you can kill them, or you can ignore them and run past. Follow the light, keep progressing the zone. Eventually, you'll end up in an area with a path up, and a bunch of stuff, and by stuff I mean Yaoguai, hanging from the ceiling. So from here, continue through all the way up to the top until you reach the Jade Pool. Now run through the sacks yet again, this time with some weird centipedes sticking out of the ceiling. If you do all this correctly, you'll find a big sack sitting in the middle of a room. Bonk it a bit, and as its health gets to about 50%, the Venom Daoist pops out. He has spider-like movements and many arms, but doesn't have much health, so it's very easy to aggressively use all of your resources to burn his health down. After you beat him up, he's going to run away, and now it's up to you to find him again, except he didn't really leave you too many hints for his location. So, the quest is continued, starting from the Temple of Yellow Flowers Temple Entrance Shrine. Begin by heading through the gate and going up the stairs. Then go through the door, take a sharp left, head up the path, defeat all the enemies as you go, or if you prefer, simply run past them and ignore them. Keep following this path until you reach the top guarded by a snake guy. At this point, take a right and continue up the path. When you reach the top again, you have two options. You can either head left and down, or right to a kind of flat area roughly on the same elevation. To the right is the Fungi Woman, a mini-boss you can defeat, a spirit you can collect, and there's even a drink at the end of her area. So you could do that. But that's not what we're here for. We're here for the Venom Daoist, so instead, take the path left and down. Now overall, this encounter plays out pretty similarly to the first one. He continues to capitalize on his mobility, he frequently dashes a lot, he even uses a dash attack now where he'll charge at you and then charge back, or sometimes he'll leap into the air to slam down on you blade first. But again, he's pretty squishy, and it's tempting when he gets to like 50% health to just burn all your resources. Do not do that, because around 33% health, he enters a cutscene where he loses his additional arms, heals to full, and the fight begins for real. If you have refillable resources, things like a spirit or transformation, feel free to use them on the first part of a fight. But save your mana for the second part because that's when he's the most dangerous. In the second form, he unleashes a flurry of blows, which is kinda hard to find an opening, but none of them are by themselves particularly damaging. Also, it's relatively easy to stagger him either with heavy attacks, or of course with light attack finishers. And since he uses so many hits, It gives you the perfect opportunity to dodge and gain even more focus. He doesn't have much health, so at around 60-50% health, wait for him to charge away, do one of his big over-the-top jump attacks, pop Pluck of Many, then immobilize him, and then burn through his health pretty easily. After you defeat him, he points you towards the location of Purple Cloud Mountain. Turns out, he was guarding it. Now shortly after you enter Purple Cloud Mountain, you're going to meet up with a snake woman who tells you to avenge her husband. And so off you go to kill the guy responsible, because that's basically what you do around here. And the first thing you're going to encounter is the Scorpionlord. You have two choices here. Choice 1, just let him chill with his booze. If you do this, he will actually help you on the final boss of the area. But you won't get any loot for beating him if you don't actually fight him. So you can just go along your merry way, miss out on, I believe it's the Death Stinger, and enjoy a happy life. Or you can break his booze, make him real mad, and start combat. If you do, you're in for a dangerous and challenging encounter. Now the main tell here is when his claw glows yellow, he's going to use that in his next attack, which is likely to be some sort of flurry. When his tail glows green, he's going to use a poison attack, which will take the form of a wide swipe, a direct strike, or possibly a poison puddle and explosion. Now he's pretty aggressive, so you can stick close to him and time your dodge as well, or when he's using an attack sequence, you can use something like Non-Void or Cloud Step to get away, and then re-engage as he ends the sequence. Whenever he dives underground, do be particularly careful, because his goal here is to pop out, grab you, and do a whole bunch of damage. I also found that, in general, due to his hyper-aggression and due to the way he changed his attack sequences together, it's much more effective to time your dodges to avoid the damage, rather than dodging in a direction to take yourself out of the attack's path. This is especially because he will often do a long-reaching strike, followed by a sweeping slash, while also moving slightly towards the player, so if you're just hoping it was a matter of distance, there's a good chance you're going to get hit by the follow-up. But overall, I found him to be really tough. It took me a few attempts, and I kept dying because I could see what he was going to do, and couldn't react in time to dodge it. With that said, I'm going to make a dedicated video that should be out soon, going over the Scorpionlord's moveset in more detail. So get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there, keep an eye out for that in the future. After it's out, I'll be sure to edit it down into the description. The next character you encounter is Daoist Mi. He gives you an optional quest to obtain what happens when an armor worm egg is eaten by a disciple and it mutates within them. As a note, if you want to do this quest, you must complete this quest before defeating the area boss. And if you complete the quest, you get the Violet Hail transformation, where you turn yourself into, you guessed it, an armor worm monstrosity and get a whole bunch of poison moves. So defeat monks around the village, gain the item, return to Daoist Mi. When you do, he attacks you. Now, in his first phase, he just attacks with a blade and martial arts, similar to many of the other monks in the area. I found that he was interrupting my combos a lot, but doesn't do that much damage. One hit, probably not going to kill you. Taking 3 in a row, okay, that might kill you. Now, he doesn't have too much health, so it's very tempting to just pop your pluck and burn him down. Don't do this, because when you get him to 0, there is a phase 2, he fully heals, and he gets much more dangerous. In phase 2, he turns into an armor worm monk. You know those weird poison floppy dudes? Yeah, those. There's lots of poison clouds, and all the flopping around makes his moves very, very difficult to read. So first up, pop an anti-miasma powder. This will help you tank more of his puddles and give you a general resistance to poison. Number 2, I found that Thrust Stance was MVP here, so I could dodge out of his poison puddle, then bonk him from a distance. Now this is where you should use Pluck of Many. Generally speaking, while he is pretty aggressive, he doesn't cover that much distance, so you shouldn't need to cast Immobilize before casting Pluck. Instead, you can go Pluck into Immobilize to get additional damage on the boss while he's frozen, blast him, burn through his health, and of course don't forget to collect your reward afterwards. After doing battle with the Daoist, then follow the path up from the top of the town, and enter the area where you're going to fight Duskveil. Now this is also a 2-phase fight, and the phase 2 is also hidden. It happens, you guessed it, when he reaches 0 health. So, in phase 1, conserve resources. Now, if you did not fight Scorpionlord, he will actually come help you and help to get the boss to 50% health. But this only happens once, so personally I would just kill Scorpionlord and get the loot instead. In phase 1, Dusckveil attempts to claw at you, head bash you, and stomp on you. But in addition, he has a couple more moves. The first is his projectile volley. He shoots out a bunch of projectiles from his wings, which you can easily dodge forwards through to close distance on the boss. Now sometimes when you approach him, he throws out a quick punch. This is a lot harder to dodge, since the animation is quite fast, but if you stick close to him, he doesn't seem to use this too often, especially if you stick to his sides. Then there's his aerial move, which is kind of hard to get the timing for because the camera angle is absolutely awful here. But when you see him go up in the air, do your best to dodge the spinning kick. Doesn't hit too hard, at least minus the landing. Overall, Duskveil's attacks are slow and methodical, so if he feels a little bit easy, oh don't worry, there's plenty of challenge in phase 2 after you get his health to 0. So after the cutscene, he attacks you with a sword now, firing blades of energy at range. Many of these slashes are horizontal, so you need to time your dodge correctly, rather than just going to the side and hoping that's good enough. He will also continue to use his Stomp, Claw, and Headbutt attacks. But now his projectile barrage is way deadlier. Because it's the projectile barrage from his wings, with even more projectiles, then he goes into the air and fires more projectiles, and then he attempts to dive on top of you. If you still have non-void, you can use non-void to phase through one set of projectiles, but then you're going to have to either sprint or dodge to avoid the others, or alternatively you can just use Cloud Step and let the decoy tank all of it. Personally, I'd very much recommend using Cloud Step for this if you have it available. Another new mechanic for phase 2 is periodically he will use a breath attack or generate red fog. Now, this red fog doesn't move around that much, but standing in it slowly eats away at your health, so you'll have to decide, do I want to move back away, preserve my health, and let the boss just kind of chill in the fog? Or do I want to go into the fog, tank it, and heal myself up afterwards? I think if you have plenty of gourd charges, it's totally fine to tank some of the fog, just be aware that it does damage. He also has a sword combo, where he causes his sword to appear, does a couple sweeping attacks, leaps into the air, lands on the sword hilt, and then a second later causes a big explosion. Dodge the sweeps, while he's in the air, run away from his landing point, let the explosion go off, then go back in. Now for me personally, I only took a couple attempts at this boss. I didn't see him use any grab attacks, but that said, it feels like almost every boss in Blackmyth Wukung does have a grab attack, so I wouldn't be surprised if he had one and he was just being a little bit shy about using it. However, all the attacks that I've covered are the things that he used quite frequently, and in some cases, just downright spammily. So as long as you're confident in dealing with all of them, you should be okay within the fight. In phase 1, it's totally fine to use your transformation or spirit, it should be back up for phase 2. In phase 2, I found you want to get him to around 50-ish% health before you pop a Pluck of Many. And do try to immobilize him when he's on the ground. If you immobilize him if he's in the middle of a jump attack, sometimes you actually end up leaving the boss slightly out of range of your attacks, which is very much not optimal. I also found that in phase 1, he was quite easy to interrupt. Basically, almost any time you hit him with a charged heavy, he was going to stop what he was doing for a second. In phase 2, a few of his attack sequences did have super armor, meaning you couldn't just interrupt him by bonking him. But also, I feel like he was easier than Scorpionlord, so if you got that guy down, you should be okay here as well. Again, just conserve your resources for phase 2, be aware of tanking the dot, and when he has his sword out, be really careful to avoid unnecessary damage. Those are the times when you're most likely to get comboed. While very often you can take like a quick punch into a stomp attack, that'll do a good chunk of health, it's probably not going to global you, whereas there's a good chance that eating a full barrage combo or sword combo very much will. And so here's how the fight went for me. Now, after defeating Duskveil, congratulations, you've completed the area. You speak again to the Snake Woman, and you get the Golden Needle. This vessel is particularly useful because it aggressively hones in and attacks stuff. And in addition to directly doing damage, as kind of a sentient entity, it does a pretty good amount of stagger too, so against some enemies it's very effective at keeping them from doing anything scary. Plus, it is very effective against the final boss of Chapter 4, the 100-Eyed Daoist. He has a special phase where he gets superpowers, and if you use the needle, that instantly dispels the phase, leaving him much weaker and at low health. So I strongly recommend completing this area before taking on the chapter's final boss. And after you do, come back and let me know something. What was the hardest boss within the area? Was it Duskveil, Daoist Mi, or Scorpionlord? For me, it was absolutely Scorpionlord. But I'm curious about some of your thoughts down in the comments below. Hey, I guess if you struggled on Venom Daoist, include him too. On the other hand, if you want to follow along with step-by-step instructions on reaching some of these locations, or to read back on some tips and tricks for defeating the bosses, I'll have a full written guide over at MaxwellGG. On the other hand, if you just realized there are vessels in this game and you're looking for the rest of them, don't worry, I've got you. I'll link up in the card and down below with a video to defeat Fuban and get the Wind Tamer vessel and Elder Jinshi and get his Fireproof Mantle vessel as well. Now, of course, before I go, a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as those $1 a month, you can now make videos just like this possible. Link to support is down below. And a big thanks to everyone who watched to the end of the video. I'm glad you enjoyed. Hopefully you haven't been losing too much of your sanity to the poison in Chapter 4. I found it really annoying that it was just constantly there. I don't know. Send me back to Chapter 1, Chapter 3. Send me back to the chapters that don't constantly put a dot on me. In some ways, Chapter 5 is more of the same with burning, but hey, at least that one you can dodge a few times, and it puts the fires out. With that, look forward to more content soon, and I hope to see you in the next one.